Answers are finally given to us in the ACOLYTE episode 7 as we return 16 years into the past on Brendok and learn what really happened in May and Osha's Witch Village. From the beginning of the episode, we learned that the Jedi were actually on Brendok not for the children or not looking for children, but doing simple geological surveys, collecting moss, rocks, plants, and anything else they can find since the planet shouldn't actually have much life on it, being that it was in the direct path of the Legacy-run hyperspace incident that the High Republic is centered around. For those unfamiliar with the Great Hyperspace Disaster, a ship called the Legacy-run collided with a Nihil storm ship while in hyperspace, causing it to break up while still in hyperspace and eject massive pieces of it all over the galaxy, destroying a number of star systems and planets in the process. It's the big event that the High Republic novels in Phase 1 are all birthed from, and I highly recommend you check out those books. They are fantastic, especially the first one, Light of the Jedi. It does a great job setting up this entire incident. The Jedi, meanwhile, are suspicious of the planet seemingly having life, believing there is a vergence in the Force on the world. This is one of those kind of eyebrow-raising moments for me, since a vergence is exactly what Qui-Gon Jinn described Anakin Skywalker as being in Episode 1, and it basically means that there is something of extremely powerful Force potential on the planet, something manipulating the world around it. While searching for this vergence, Sol ends up happening upon May and Osha under the Bunta tree, a scene which we saw back in Episode 3 where they are playing with those weird butterfly things and May kind of goes a little bit overboard and almost kills one of them. Sol ends up telling the rest of the Jedi that he saw the girls using the Force, and I'm going to be talking about Sol quite a fair bit throughout this review since he really is kind of the center of the episode, and many of the things that we see happen because of his actions, and even his inaction at times. Sol follows the girls and Mother Coral back to the village and watches them train under Mother Anasaya, revealing to be the sound which the witches heard from within their village's reactor. It's that shot where they see something, we get to see the reactor, and originally I thought that maybe someone had tampered with that and that's why we saw that shot of the reactor and specifically our attention was drawn to it. But I love that it just turned out to just be the Jedi's interference and the Jedi just snooping around. The Jedi are alerted to the girls and decide to try and break into the village to see them and take them, basically, have them tested more or less. Again, I love the portrayal of the Jedi and how they aren't portrayed as these perfect heroes. They aren't villains, of course, but they are fallible and they are people, and I really like that. I really like that just being a Jedi doesn't mean you're this perfect being who can do no wrong, like a lot of fans seem to think they can do. They think that once you become a Jedi, you're just like this paragon of good and just, and that's not the case at all. And I really like when writers and filmmakers and, you know, in this case, a TV show actually sort of dissect that and show like, all Jedi are different and some mean better than others, but they can also be just humans who are just fallible and can make mistakes. One thing we saw in Episode 3 was Torben undergo some sort of corruption or possession where his eyes turned black and he fell to his knees, and that's also expanded upon in this episode where we actually get to see it from his point of view and where he's sort of trapped in his own head by Mother Anasaya. And I like that we learned that he's just kind of a scared kid. He wants to go back to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and just continue his studies there. He doesn't like being out on the mission in the field. And in this regard, he's very much like the High Republic Jedi Reath Silas, who's a main character in the second High Republic book, Into the Dark. And he's, again, just a Padawan who just wants to, you know, continue his studies in the Jedi Temple. He doesn't want to be out in the field and he hates having to go on a mission. He'd rather just be reading books and studying. Anasaya preys on that and sort of starts seeding doubt into Torben's mind and makes him act quite erratic throughout this entire episode. Indara and Sol come to blows since Indara doesn't want to test or train the girls, only going along with it since it will allow her to get back to the ship and contact the council for guidance on what to do. But Sol is adamant that Osha is to be his Padawan, sensing a connection with her. However, he doesn't feel one with May, which is quite strange, being that they make a point to say that these girls are essentially the same person. They're created by this thing in the Force, which is still not really explained. I'm sure that's going to get more into in the final episode. It's still not really explained exactly how they are created. They make it known that it is different from how Anakin was created. They make that very clear that this is different from how Anakin was created. But they do also make it known that they share the same symbiosis in midichlorians, which essentially means they're the same person. And I find it really intriguing that he somehow doesn't have a connection with May, and I wonder if that has anything to do with the ritual going on for as long as it did, and May actually ending up getting that symbol on her forehead that the witches did in the ritual, and I wonder if that maybe cut her off from whatever Soul was sensing. It definitely has something to do with what the girls were created for, which still is very unclear, and I think that's the purpose of it, because we see that the girls are also very unclear on what their role is. They just know that they are made to be leaders of this ritual, after this ritual, and they don't know really what it is. They just regurgitate what their mothers have told them without fully understanding what it means, and we don't really know what it is either. I have to imagine it had to be something with leading the coven, but there's also the fact that we see these witches be able to transport themselves into people through the minds of like Torben and stuff. So was there some sort of like possession thing happening there? Again, very unclear, and it is a little frustrating that they haven't told us that as of yet, especially because we've got one episode left. So it feels like they're kind of banking on there being another season, and hopefully there is, to explain this a little bit more. Eventually, Torben's blood tests on the girls finishes, and the Jedi learn that they are artificially created by a virgins in the Force. Torben thinks that this will be their ticket back home with this evidence and races off to get proof, kicking off everything in the village. And it's cool that everything that's happened in the village is thanks to rash decisions of a scared Padawan. It's actually kind of on point, since the Padawan is usually the one who ends up cocking something up on a mission, or, you know, messing something up because they aren't skilled enough. They react on emotion and stuff. They haven't been taught properly, more or less. In the village, we learned that Mother Coral is the one who actually instigated the fight between May and Osha that led to May burning the place down, as she wanted May to basically force Osha to follow them and join the cult, hitting May with the old Jedi are evil monsters story and they can't trust them. Anasaya, meanwhile, has an interesting turn, since she wants Osha to follow her path in life and was actually planning on handing her over to the Jedi. You know, she's not a leader of this cult anymore. She's Osha's mother in this scene, and I really like that, and I really like that they make that known. It's like she wants nothing to do with the cult now. She's just a mother who wants what's best for her child, and that's giving Osha away to the Jedi, because that's what the child wants. Mother Coral's plan, however, buggers everything up, and the fires begin, and turns out that they were responsible for the reactor exploding, not some nefarious tinkering by the Sith or something like I assumed. It was just the fire got out of control and ended up getting into the reactor. I guess that makes it a little bit more simple as well. You don't have, you know, all these different moving parts where the Sith were like manufacturing things so they could move the girls into a position where they could eventually in 16 years take them on as apprentices or anything like that. It was nothing like that. It was just something so simple as a bunch of series of unfortunate events and the actions of an angry, emotional child and a bunch of Jedi who got in a little bit too over their heads. Everything begins to come into a head as Sol and Torben confront the witches, and Sol is forced to kill Anasaya in front of May when she tries to escape with the woman. I quite like this because we see her turn to like a mist, which I mentioned before, and she almost turns into like a demon sort of thing, because she gets like these big fangs and like her face sort of contorts into like a demon sort of alien face. Is really strange, really creepy, and I like that Sol's first option is to just kill her before she can escape with the child. The witches of course attack the Jedi, and Torben gets a really sick little action sequence where he employs some moves we've seen Anakin Skywalker use in the prequel trilogy, and a twist comes when you think that Torben is going to fall under the witch's spell again, but not this time, as it's Kalnaka who it does, leading to him battling Sol and Torben, with him ending up giving Torben the scar he has over his eye before Indara is able to free his mind from the witches, and in doing so it kills all of the remaining witches, something which May and Osha end up seeing a little later on in the episode, thinking that maybe Mei actually was the one behind all of this. This leaves Sol to get the twins from the reactor room, and it's where the episode actually diverges in what we saw before, since what we saw was from Osha's point of view, Osha and Mei's point of view, and here we actually find that Sol actually saved both Mei and Osha from falling. However, he could only properly hold on to one of the girls with the Force, and he chose to let Mei fall to her death. Also, he could save Osha, having felt the connection with her and not her sister. Again, it's just more fantastic acting from Lee Jung-jae here as Sol, as he's just racked with guilt over what happened, only wanting to protect the girls from the harm, but his actions and his inactions led to them causing more damage than they actually intended to, and now he feels even more obligated to help Osha. This leads to the Jedi covering up what really actually happened, only telling the council about the fire and how everyone died, nothing else, and Osha, who wakes up with no real memory of what happened thanks to the overall trauma of everything, is told that Mei did it all and died in the fires she set. In the classic Star Wars way, this is true, again, from a certain point of view, and that really has become kind of a running theme for this series. The Jedi are right from a certain point of view, Quimir is right from a certain point of view, and it gives the show a chance to explore all different views on things like the Force and how Jedi training goes, how people should be able to use the Force free from the Jedi teachings, or not have to worry about the Jedi, forcing their dogma on other people who have the Force. It's really quite interesting, especially because obviously the movies, we just get kind of the Jedi perspective because they're the heroes of those movies, whereas this show kind of dives a little bit deeper into the fact that sometimes they're heroes, sometimes they're not very heroic, and I just love that we get to explore that and sort of begin to see the evolution of the Jedi turning into the more dogmatic, sit around, really do nothing Jedi we see in the prequel era. We've got one episode left in the season, and there's still a little bit left unexplained, mostly from Quimir's side of things and what exactly he is, who he serves. Is he a Sith? Is he a Knight of Ren? What exactly is he? I'm sure we're going to get an answer to that in the final minutes of the episode as well. Osha and Mei also switching sides, with Osha kind of coming over to the dark side and Mei kind of lightening up a little bit, is something I hope isn't just glossed over, since that happened so late in the season, and it feels like something they're relying on getting a season 2 for so they can explore that more, which I think will happen. I think a season 2 is definitely on the cards, especially since the streaming numbers are around the same for shows like Ahsoka and Andor, both of which got second season runs. I'm looking forward to what the finale brings this coming week and where the show leaves all our characters. I'm going to give this episode an 8.5 out of 10.